I was born August 28, 1928, in Springfield, New Jersey.
Okay, and is that where you grew up as well?
Yes, I grew up there, went to school there, Jonathan Dayton Regional High School.
Okay, and then when did you, tell me a little bit about your childhood. What did you hope to become when you grew up as a kid before you got drafted?
Well, I really didn't know what I wanted to become. I really never got involved in that because my father had a business in Springfield, a shoe store and shoe repair shop, and I never thought about what I was going to do as a young man because at those times things were tough and you just had to roll with the punches.
And what year did you say you were born?
What year? 1928.
Okay, so what was the name of your father's shoe store?
Colantone Shoe Store and Repair.
And where was that?
In Morris Avenue, Springfield, New Jersey.
So you thought you might work there? You
Yes.
might take up your father's job?
Yes.
Especially in those days, kids did what their fathers did,
Yes,
right?
most times that's what they did.
So your young years as a teen, where World War II was raging.
Yes.
What are your memories of World War II, and what did you think?
Well, I thought World War II was the nastiest war I ever saw in my life. Of course, I never saw any other wars except for the Chinese fighting, and I saw that at the movie theaters, and they would present the news and film of World War II in Germany and Europe, throughout Europe, and the Philippines, and down at the Pacific Ocean. I recall when they bombed Pearl Harbor also.
What are your memories of that day? When did you first hear the news, and what did you think, and what did your father think?
Well, we all thought it was a serious problem, and we didn't know what to expect at that time. I mean, it was terrible, getting hit on one side and then the next thing on the other side of this country. And we were in for a long, drawn-out affair, you know. And we lost a lot of people in that war. We lost an awful lot, and terrible. I mean, I've had friends in that war, and they were lost.
Do you have family friends? Anybody in particular comes to mind?
I had a lot of friends. I mean, I had a friend in high school that got killed in Busan just before I went to Korea in 1951, and I couldn't imagine him being in a war because his glasses were very thick, and I was really surprised that he got into service.
Well, before we get to Korea, I just wanted to just stay for a couple of minutes on World War II. What are your memories of it impacting? What are the commentaries of your family and your father and your neighborhood? What was the atmosphere? What did it feel like?
Well, the atmosphere in the town was very upsetting to everybody. And my father also, of course, my mother, she spoke Italian and didn't realize what was going on unless my father told her or her children told her. She didn't speak English well. They came here in 1925. My father came here before that. And of course, a traumatic experience for everybody in the town. You know, we didn't know what to expect, who was going to get drafted. Guys I know that went into service in the town who were older than me, and so forth and so on, you know.
Where did your family come from?
Italy.
Where in Italy?
I came from a town between Naples and Rome, a small town they call Lenola.
That's your father or your mother?
Yep, both of them.
Both of them, okay. But they met here?
No, they met in Italy. My father was here before that and had a store, and he didn't have the store in Springfield. He had a store, and the last store he had was in Bernardsville.
Okay. All right. So then World War II ends. When World War II ends, what did you do after high school between World War II and Korean War? What did you do?
Well, I worked for my father in the store. My brother was in the Pacific, and he come home, and he got involved in the store. We was busy then. We had a couple repairmen there too, besides us, that would repair shoes and work in a store.
Where did your brother serve in the Pacific?
He served in the Army in the Philippines, and he was shipped to Australia because he had a heart murmur.
Okay. So did you ever think it was possible after World War II that not so long after that there would be the Korean War?
No, we never thought about it. I never thought about it. I mean, of course, we didn't follow the news like everybody does, but that was something that just come out of the blue, I thought, you know.
Okay, and when did you first hear of Korean War, and did you think you would end up going there?
Well, first hear of it when, of course, in June 1950, I heard about it. I was dating someone, and I didn't expect to get drafted, but I thought I might get drafted because they still had the draft on. And it took me by surprise, you know, so I was drafted 2 weeks before or 10 days before Christmas in 1950.
What, so it came by mail?
Yes, if I recall.
Do you recall your impression when you received the letter?
Well, my impression was, I guess I gotta go. That was my impression. I says, I gotta.
Who opened the letter?
I think my parents did at the time.
What was their reaction?
Well, they were upset. And my brother just come back from World War II, and they had another son that was going to go to war.
And so, what did the letter say? Do you have that letter still?
No.
Did it say you were to report somewhere?
Yes, I was told to report to Newark, New Jersey, and I went there. I reported there, passed the physical, and I was drafted, of course. I went to Fort Dix.
And can you tell me a little bit about Fort Dix? How long and what was the experience there like?
Well, the first night in Fort Dix was quite an experience. And it was cold like a day today because that was just before Christmas. And I wore my long johns. I got to the barracks where we were attached to, and there was no heat in there. So we didn't have any heat. We had those coal stoves, and nobody lit the coal stove. And I think it had a basement, to my knowledge. I don't know. It's quite a while ago. And all the guys were laughing, you know, but we got settled the next day, pretty much.
And tell me a little bit about the training. What did you train? How long and what did you do?
We trained for 8 weeks. We went through combat training, firing different weapons. And also, while I was waiting there, getting clothes one night, 2 officers came to see me, and I was shocked. And it was one officer was my cousin. He was the first lieutenant, and he had a friend of his who was a captain. And they were laughing because my overcoat went down to my ankle, and they were laughing. Well, it so happens that the lieutenant, my cousin from Burnsville, was executive officer in a company. And the next day I went to that company. I didn't know he was there, and he come outside and said to me, "Don't tell anybody you're related because they'll ship you out." We did 8 weeks of training with machine guns, BARs, and did marches, trained like hell. Kill or be killed was the word. So I spent 8 weeks in Fort Dix, then I was shipped out. I was shipped out to the Army Chemical Center in Maryland. And I didn't know I was going to a chemical warfare detachment. So we trained 8 weeks in Maryland. The first week there was 6, 7 of us who volunteered. They needed volunteers for gas warfare to go in a gas chamber to test G agents, blood and nerve gas that we received from the Germans after World War II. and we were in a gas chamber for a short period of time with no gas masks. And then when we come out, we had to sit in a chair, and they naturally tested our whole body. I don't think there's anybody left but me in that crew.
So you were kind of guinea pigs. They were using your body.
Yes.
Did they ask you to volunteer, or they told you you had to?
No, they asked us to volunteer. We volunteered because they were going to give us a 3-day pass, and the captain wouldn't give us the pass, and finally the major did come down and order it, but it wasn't pleasant to get that pass anyway.
Did you understand at that age how dangerous it was what you were doing?
We understood, but we didn't know. We were, a bunch of young guys that just wanted to go home for 3 days, and then we had to be back on a Saturday afternoon.
So can you describe the chamber? What did it look like, and what did you feel when you smelled it or when you felt it?
Well, we couldn't smell it, actually. I guess they use a very small amount of gas in there. We had no gas masks. And it was the size of a room, maybe 10 by 12. The doors were closed, and we come out one by one. We had to sit in a chair and be checked out, and they told us not to say anything to anybody about this. It's top secret then.
Do you remember feeling sick or not feeling anything at all?
No, I felt good, and there was no problem with me.
Okay. And how many times did you go in there?
Just the one time for that gas chamber.
And so then after that, what happened? What other training?
Well, we did a lot of training there with gas masks. Always carried a gas mask. And same training as if we were in the infantry, with weapons. Then we went home for a week, and then we shipped out to Seattle, Washington to go to Korea. In Seattle, we stayed at Fort Lewis a couple of days. It was another terrible camp, but Fort Dix was beautiful compared to that. And then we shipped out going to Korea.
What was the atmosphere? What was the feeling at the time? Did everybody understand the seriousness of it?
Yes, everybody understood. We were all happy. We were, we didn't know what to expect there and experience. And, of course, I didn't realize I was in a gas warfare. I thought I was going to be in the infantry or something close to that. Excuse me. And then we hit Busan, and then the crew I trained with went to one company, 68 Smoke Generator Company, and I went to the 69th Smoke Generator Company, Chemical Smoke Generator, stationed in Incheon. They were guarding the waters around Incheon with the smoke chemicals. In other words, smoke. They use smoke to hide the visibility for planes and things of that nature. And then one day they called everybody in to the compound at the island.
Before you go on, do you recall what day you arrived in Korea?
I don't know the day exactly, but it was, I'd say, sometime around May 51.
Okay. So then you were going to say they called you?
We were out along the coast of Incheon. The outfit had spectacular units there. So we slept there in the bunkers. So anyway, they called us in one day, and they needed 10 men in a forward platoon up north. When I say up north, about 150 miles north of the 38th. I went from Incheon Valley, Incheon Harbor, to Joran Valley, up north of Korea above the 38th, about 150 miles north.
And that's where you saw your combat that first night?
Yeah. So there was a young fellow there, was picked, and he didn't want to go. He cried, and I took his place, and I went. I don't want to mention nationality or nothing.
Was he a Korean?
No, he was American.
Oh. Okay.
American who was called. They picked 10 men out of a hat, let's say, or a box, and the 10 men were authorized to pack up the next morning at 8 o'clock and ship out. I took his place and I went up to the forward platoon, and I was there 9 months. The first night we hit Chorwan Valley, which was about 150 miles north of the 38th. We had some bad incoming artillery and fighting, and we lost about 50 men and over 100 wounded. And that was my first experience in North Korea. And we were attached to the 3rd Division, and we also attached, next with us was the 65th or the 69th Puerto Rican Outfit Infantry. Of course, I didn't sleep good that night. We couldn't dig foxholes. It was rock. We had to mingle in with other infantrymen there. And that was my first experience there in North Korea.
Do you remember the date? The date?
It was probably the end of May or June of '51. I can't remember exact dates because all my papers I had, they disappeared.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about that first experience? Was it day, night, and
Oh,
was it shelling, airplanes?
strictly nights, artillery, mostly because the Chinese like to, or the North Koreans and the Chinese like to fight at night. Strictly night fighters they were, and they'd sleep during the day and make it easier. They had a lot of tunnels over there, and they'd go, in the tunnels. They've a lot of tunnels dug out there for years. I mean, I don't know. That's my experience. Then we would set up smoke screens for the infantry, change the infantry on the line, and the tanks. That's what our job was mostly, or in case fighting was coming within our period, the infantry, we'd make smoke.
So on that first night, you're right in the middle of all the fighting.
Yeah.
Okay, and what kind of weapon did you have?
I had a M1, and then I used a carbine. Carbine was a better weapon to carry and a better weapon to fire more because the M1, you'd have to take and change the ammo quite often.
Were you able to actually see the enemy, or were they far away?
But these were far away that night. They were all far away. You didn't get too much small action. You got a lot of artillery. I mean, that came through.
Did you see people around you
Yep.
die?
They have bunkers and foxholes.
What was your emotion at that time? What were you doing? What were you thinking?
Well, my thinking was, I said, I'll never get out of here. My thinking was that, this is not what I expected, but, you got to expect something. But like I saw in the movies on World War II. So, of course, we all cried, and we put up with it, and we carried on. And from that point on, I traveled from that sector, which was close to the west coast of Korea, North Korea. And we traveled all the way over to the middle of Korea, above or near the checkout point, where you would cross the 38th. So that was my experience, a lot of experience in between. The first 6 months, I had 2 good lieutenants there, very good. The third 3 months, I had a terrible lieutenant from Alabama. It was horrible. Bad experience with him. And
why was it a bad experience?
well, I don't think he was knowledgeable about war or warfare. I don't know where he went to school or anything. He would pick me up in the morning and say, come on, Colantone, we're going to 45th Division. He let me stay in a cook's tent all day. I thought he went there to talk about making a situation with some kind of a what he call a mission. So he come by at 6, 7 o'clock at night and said, "Come on, we're going home." I says, "You can't drive on these roads without a escort. You can't drive alone on it." He wouldn't hear it, and he said, "Well, you think that snow will come down?" I says, "No, but maybe the chinks will, because you can't drive on those roads at night after 6 o'clock." When I used to come through the checkpoint to go into the front lines, if I was there after 8 o'clock, I had to stay there. I couldn't go on the roads because I had to report to the colonel. But that type of thing. Then he would drink a lot. He would go to different, when we come off the line, compounds and meet people and drink quite a bit. And he was also a kind of guy that didn't want to be on the front lines. He was afraid, I know. I know that all of my experiences there, that I was one of the oldest guys there, and they made me like the front runner. I would, when I come off the lines, I would go down to Incheon and pick up people. I'd pick up a second lieutenant, take him back. He wouldn't even talk much, and go through the checkpoint. I mean, I've had a lot of bad experiences with him, and I didn't care for him. Because last time, I'll tell you, when I came home, it was May, June, the following year. He said to me, he says, "We got a unit going up the Kempo Peninsula." Kempo Peninsula is on the coast of Korea, North Korea, on the west coast. And 50 units, and we're going to leave. We've got to leave tomorrow morning at 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I don't know. Well, my experience was I had a Jeep, had no lights. He told me, "You're leading the convoy." I says, "I'm leading the convoy. You're the lieutenant. Why don't you just sit with me?" He says, "No, I'm taking up the rear." Well, I led the convoy, and I didn't have any lights. I said, I made every vehicle there. There must have been 50 vehicles, maybe 400 men. I says, "Turn off your lights and no smoking, because we're going through dangerous quarters to get to we're going to the Marines up at the Kempo Peninsula." Well, this was a new experience for me, because I had to lead this many men and nobody else sitting in a Jeep. No sergeant, no corporal, nobody, when I was a private first class. Well, I came to one bridge and I stopped. And I said to myself, I don't know if I should take a chance to go over this bridge tonight. So I got out there and I checked the bridge. It looked pretty safe. And I went over the bridge. Thank God for that, because I would have lost a lot of guys there. So when I got on the other side and got to the checkpoint, he come to me, he says, "You go down 2 miles from here and sit and report. You sit there by yourself there." I was sitting by myself. "And then come back in the morning at the checkpoint." Maybe he was looking for somebody to find where he was. So in the morning, after I slept a little bit, the sergeant first class come down to me and he says, "The lieutenant wants to see you. You didn't come up to the checkpoint." No, we're supposed to be there at 12 o'clock. I said, "The hell with him." I was mad. He come down and he says, "You're busted. I'm going to bust you." I said, "I don't care. I'm only private first class." I said, "What you put me through." So I followed him back to the checkpoint. And lo and behold, who pulls up but the captain? I saw the captain twice in my year there. He come over to me, he says, "You're going home, Colantone." He went over to the lieutenant and ripped his bars off. He says, "Come on, Colantone, you're going back." I get back. I was late. He says to me, We went through the checkpoint for the compound into the island. He says, you go get cleaned up, go tell the cook to feed you, report to me, and then you can go out tonight. I says, go out in this hellhole. So I did that. And one of the lieutenants come out, who I served up there with before, and great guys. He said to me, would you like to stay 6 months? We'll make you sergeant first class. I says, I don't want to stay here any more than 5 minutes. I want to come home. I've had enough, especially this guy. Not only did he drink, but he didn't take care of people well, his men, you know. And it was a shame that it was like that. But I did many more things in there while I was there besides what I just said. Many more things. There's so much, it's really...
Well, can you tell me, after your first combat experience on your first night, when was your next combat experience after that?
Well, we had skirmishes when we were taking the troops out, infantry and the tanks. We used to get artillery coming in, small fire coming in. We'd have to pull out till it cleared. We made the smoke and put the infantry. I served with the 2nd Infantry, the 3rd Division, and the 7th Division.
In what places?
In various places, from the West Coast to the inner middle of North Korea, above the checkpoint. We're back and forth like yo-yos.
Can you mention specific cities or towns?
No, I can't remember. I didn't have any recollection. Some people knew I was in Chorwan Valley, was in mountains, you know. Kempo Peninsula, because it's easy to remember. The other ones were all hills, numbers. We were all at a hill, 155. I knew if I stayed there, I would go to Suicide Hill or Pork Chop. You know, Heartbreak Ridge, I was there, you know, various places. I wasn't there to write down the names and carry the different areas. They were all numbers of a hill, that's it.
So can you tell me your actions that resulted in the award of the Bronze Star?
The actions is either one of the two. I don't know, they never told me. Never said a word to me. It's either by knocking out bunkers on a hilltop. I would crawl up. I'd tell my men that I had a squad. I was a squad leader. I'd tell my men, when somebody pops up fire, and I'll climb up a little bit at a time. I put twigs on me, climb up the mountain, take some grenades with me, and then we had a flamethrower. We experimented. We put a 50-foot hose on it so I could get close enough to fire that flamethrower, because to get them out of the hole. Because either they'd come out and I'd make them take all their clothes off, because I don't want them to have a grenade in their pockets and blow the shit out of us. So I did certain things like that.
Where was that?
In the mountains there in Korea.
But you don't know specifics?
No, I don't know specifics.
So you had multiple times you had close quarter combat
Yep.
with the enemy?
Yeah. Most times we were there, we saw, I also served with a mortar company for 2 months. And I had a young fella there come out of the bunker one morning. He slept in a bunker with another guy and I the other. I says, what's wrong with your eye? He says, I got a glass eye. I sent him home. Shortly thereafter, one morning, get out of the bunker, and the company disappeared on me. So I took my men and went back to find my outfit and where they were, called them. But right now, there's a lot of stories in the night. You know, there's so much, it's unbelievable. But I felt sorry for these young kids. They're young.
But you were young.
I was 22. They were younger than me, 18. You know, you had some young fellas over there in Korea got battle stars and got all kinds of awards, and they took it away from them.